I'm sure there are people that are listening to this that are sitting on piles and piles and piles of debt as a result of going to college. And I'm sitting here going, how much better off are you?
Who's that?
No.
I don't even know how that happened, guys.
For the last 13 years, we've made leaps and bounds. However, we really haven't decreased our injury rates in 13 years. What does that say? It means that...
Holy crap.
My boss is going to see this and be like, what were you doing in
What
Georgia?
happened?
Yeah.
The Sienna is pretty weird with the electric motor.
Yeah, it's at 25 miles an hour, you're all battery.
Okay.
And
It's
then
trippy.
and then it kicks in. It's almost like the first time you're in, like the F-150s do the shut off thing at the stoplight, and you're like,
It took me a while to
I
get used
stalled.
to
turn
it.
it
If
off.
you're old
Yeah,
school,
yeah.
you're like, why'd I stall?
Yeah.
Like, you get it like immediately.
You get a panic.
I drove an 81 Chevrolet, and that is seared into my memory. You know how many times I'd stall, and I was like, all right, was it the gas or is it just broke again? Like, that thing left me on the side of the road so much.
Jeez, man. No, it did take me some getting used to whenever I first got it. You know, you pull up to the stoplight and it just
goes-
shuts and you're like,
I
boom.
can't stand it.
Okay, yeah. And there's the button to turn it off. I just haven't really. I just got used to it. But
Yeah.
it still feels weird.
Well, because I feel like I'm not being green, like I'm not being sustainable if I'm turning the button off and all that
I
stuff.
don't really care.
Bought my son a 95 Ford F-150 manual.
Yeah.
Oh,
Favorite
heck
truck
yeah.
in the world. Like I love
a lot
that
of
thing.
fun.
I'm like, hey, do you need me to take the truck for something? And I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't. Why did I buy you this? Like
Yeah, that's
this
fun.
thing's awesome. It's super fun.
I keep telling Sam, I'm like, hey, I really want to just get like an old truck, just cause.
You
like,
should.
I just like the old F100s, like get something like that. Oh, dude, like just kind of spruce it up just
Yeah, like
a
a
little
70,
bit.
69ish.
Yeah,
that'd
yeah.
be sweet.
Oh man, that's so pretty too.
Yeah.
And I saw a guy actually. He was over at Lowe's and he was loading up some stuff. And I went over to him. I was like, dude, that's a sick truck. And he had an F100. And he's like, yeah, this is like my fifth one. Like he's just been getting them on repeat for years and years and years. And it had a little bit of rust on it. It just looked, dude. It just looked good.
That's
you know?
perfect.
Yeah.
Well, I did that cliche thing to where I was down at the park and I saw this kid pull up in this truck that's now my son's. And I was like, hey, it's a pretty sweet truck. Can I walk around it? And he was like, yeah, he's just a young kid. I think he was like 17 at the time.
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, no problem. And I go, hey, you ever interested in selling it? And he was like, everything's for sale. And I was like, oh, yeah. And I walked around a little bit more and I was like, are you serious? And he was like, yeah. So I waited like maybe 3 months. And then I got his number that day and I called him. I was like, hey, are you serious about selling that truck? He was like, yeah. And I was like, okay. I don't have the kind of money to, like do that kind of. So we had to like wheel and deal.
Yeah.
But it was awesome to be like, I really like that truck. Do you want to sell it? And he was like, yeah. I was like, oh, you just start asking that more. Like, I was like, no, that's just, you can actually do that.
Nice.
And not be like super rich.
I've heard of this.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, I felt so awesome.
You walk into a house now and you're just like, hey, is this, how much?
Yeah.
How much?
Yeah.
This is what the other side looks like.
Everything's for sale.
I was like, hey, is that house for sale? Yes, of course. Okay, well, I can't afford that one. Yeah. Well, let me know when the interest rates come down.
Dude, oh my gosh, my wife would hate me if I was just like, yeah, it's totally for sale. Yeah, it is, 1,000%. She's like, you sold my car. Sorry.
But look at how much I made on it. That's
We lost $10,000. Yeah, but we got the money in the bank now, though.
it was cool.
We have to buy another one. Shoot.
Dad almost bought the brown bomb back for me like years back.
Let's clarify. That is your old truck.
That is
and
my old
it's
truck. That is
named-
the 81
yes,
Scottsdale that I just loved.
the brown bomb.
Yeah.
I look back now and wonder, like, how could one love a truck that blew the engine out, lost the transmission, had to get a rear end put in? I mean, like,
Dude,
if
you
there
had
was
a lot of issues.
Yeah,
with
if
that
there was a
thing.
part
Yes.
on the truck, I think I replaced it.
You
And-
could have probably purchased like 3 other cars with the amount of work that you put into it.
Easily, yes.
But you wouldn't have the experience.
That
It's
is
huge.
like, it was a great thing, honestly. I mean, kind of fun memories when I got stranded on the side of the road a couple times. Speaking of the whole like country road thing, I got stranded one time between suburban Atlanta and Athens. And that's before cell phones. And I had to walk into a house and I started hearing banjo music. I'm just kidding.
But you're like, this is great.
It was like Not far off though, and we are in Georgia.
I was
And that
about
is
to
where
say,
that was shot.
that's a little too far south for that. You
That's
get
too far
you get up
south,
in the
yes.
mountains. That's where that starts to occur.
That
all right?
is.
That's the case here.
That was Dahlonega. Yeah, Deliverance was Dahlonega. Anyway,
I used to goof with friends who came up to visit whenever we lived up in the mountains. Like we'd be driving on an old dirt road. It's like, here banjos, man. You better turn around.
Yeah,
it's
paddle
like,
faster.
and you kind of think I'm kidding, but I'm actually not. Like,
Let's be safe.
let's just be let's- use your common sense. All right, use your common sense.
we said this was going to be kind of a no holds barred, like we're just going to wander around the episode, but that might have been a mistake. If we have sponsors after this episode, I'll be a little surprised.
Yeah,
Maybe
just don't-
Chevy or Ford. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Hey, I would take that. That would be great.
Do that.
So, okay, true story. We'll tie
love
this
it.
back to construction somehow. So, DPR, right?
Yeah.
Most of our fleet comes from Ford.
Mm-hmm.
So, I had this crazy idea. I was like, hey, I travel a decent amount. I was like, I wonder if I could get Ford to sponsor a transit trail van and let me build it out for like innovation and, do this
Heck
traveling
yeah.
thing. I was like, why wouldn't they? They said no. But it still started the conversation on So I actually got to talk to the guy who developed the Raptor for the Border Patrol. And super cool guy. And I was like, I can't believe I'm talking to you right now and you won't give me one. But that's another episode.
Yeah.
But I had that idea of like, hey, we're moving into, we're so used to pickup trucks, right? We started this episode talking about sweet pickup trucks. And like, I've had a van. And I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. Now if we can do a 4-wheel drive van and make it cool and construction-wise, like I think there's something there. Again, still trying to test that idea, looking for sponsors. But it was a lot of fun to get a chance to like talk to, some people that help develop that. And that's so much fun about like what I do for DPR is I get to partner with people and like come up with these crazy ideas and ask that, hey, would you be interested in, or like, you want to sell that truck? Kind of that idea. Hey, you want to give me a van?
Yeah.
I get a lot more no's than I get yeses, but it's still a lot of fun to ask the question.
Just ask the question. You never know.
And I think like our younger generation, they're afraid to ask a lot of that kind of stuff. And I'm like, have you asked the question? Did you call them on the phone? No. Their text message tone, said X to me. And I'm like, all right, let's not go down this. So I think it's important we get back to communicating, like this, face to face as humans. Ask them questions. Don't be afraid to say no. Like they're going to say no. Okay, what'd you learn from that? And how are you going to ask differently the next time?
I don't know why, but like every idea that I have about like a really cool innovation has to do with the transit van. All right. I don't know what it is, dude. Are you in that same vein too? I'm like, oh man, I just get a transit van and I could do this and this and this with it. Like for all the video stuff that we do, I'm like, man, I could load it out.
Oh,
have, like all the cameras in there. I'd have all the lighting in there. I could even put a bed in there too. So like I could stay overnight. It wouldn't be a deal. Wouldn't have to rent a hotel or anything. Like my brain just starts splitting.
100% aligned with you. And I actually probably went down that rabbit hole on the way here, just thinking that, I even thought like, okay, we could get like Milwaukee to come in and like do pack out on the whole wall. And you could do all your toolboxes. Yeah. You get the wall on the other side, whatever it is. There's so many cool innovations like that. And so my son's a wrestler. My daughter plays volleyball. Yeah. My son also plays lacrosse. So like most weekends we're somewhere. Mm-hmm. And during COVID, we bought a Sprinter van. And it was awesome. We traveled all over the West Coast. We raced mountain bikes. I did the road show for work and stuff like that. And then we moved to Bend, Oregon. And I was like, this thing's not 4-wheel drive. This doesn't work. So we sold it. And I miss that van every day. Like there should be more vans around that aren't the creepy ones, right?
Of course,
we all know what we're talking about. Like let's not make them white anymore. And they should always have windows.
My kids call those candy vans. Like they just straight up, they're like, and they've got the whole free candy joke that they will throw around morbidly.
I will throw this out there and we can cut it later if this is terrible. But there is a van around here in Milledgeville and it's an ice cream truck.
Oh yeah.
You know the one, right? Mm-hmm. And it's yellow and it is very suspect. It is so suspect.
It's got like a megaphone duct taped to the top.
Yes, legitimately a megaphone duct taped to the top. And you're like, whoa, I ice cream do you sell?
Yeah. Do you
That's
even
what I
sell
asked
it?
them whenever I got into the van to get ice cream.
And they're like, oh
matter,
yeah,
just get
it's
in.
down the street in the freezer.
Right. We got to go down
Yeah,
here.
we can plug it in.
Okay, let me call my
Jump
wife
in,
to make
just
sure it's
jump in.
cool. That's awesome.
I'm thinking A-team van. You know, like
Oh,
you're
yeah.
saying that.
Well,
I'm
that
like,
too.
could we deck it out with the A-team theme? Would anybody care anymore?
Okay, I keep coming back to this. Chris Farley, what's the
The
skit?
van down by the river.
Living in a van down by the river. It's
Yeah.
like at one point we were like, we don't want to be living in a van down by the
Yes.
river. Now this generation's
all I
like,
wanna do.
I just want to live in a van down by the river.
And put it on Instagram.
Yeah, and put it on Instagram.
This is how I live in a van down by the river.
Yeah.
Be
And I'm an influencer.
Yeah. Be an influencer.
Yeah.
And it's hilarious. Most of those vans do have like the Instagram handles
Yeah,
on
the
the
little tag on the
Dude,
back.
I saw one the other day, and it was a bunch of like old farts that were driving down the road, and they had an Instagram like handle on the back. I'm like, you're 90. What's going on
They're
here, man?
grandkids, right?
It's awesome, man.
We
It's
should have
awesome.
a hashtag, like hashtag Matt Foley for all of the van people out there. That's the skit.
Yeah, I know.
That's-
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. I know. I know what it is. So anyway, aside from vans,
Ah, man, he shot me down hard on that
yes,
one.
I did. Aside from vans and those things, what else is going on in your world, man? Like, what's new? What you seeing? What's exciting to you? Like, let's dive into some of the fun.
There's a lot going on always,
Yeah.
right? There's so much funding coming into the construction tech world. So many new solutions. We've been building a lot of partnerships lately, which is, I think, probably my favorite thing about what I get to do, and connecting solutions and developers and partners and going like, hey, I don't have the expertise for this,
Yeah.
but you do, and you do. Congratulations, you guys just met. Call me when it's ready.
Yeah.
So we've been doing a lot of stuff with like ergonomics. And I read this thing this morning at breakfast down the street about how for the last 13 years, we've made leaps and bounds. However, we really haven't decreased our injury rates in 13 years. What does that say? It means that we have all this technology and solution. And I think a lot of the technology lives, we call it back of house, right? In the project trailer.
Yeah.
And not quite getting down to the field. We, I think, are stuck in in production. Like if this machine or innovation can't increase our production, then it's not as valuable. When I think we need to kind of flip the script on that a little bit, where if we look long-term versus value right now, and like, this is going to increase my production by X. If we look, this is going to keep my worker safe and my worker working for the next 10 years. I think there's a lot of value in that.
Yeah.
And so I've been kind of playing with that a little bit, and like, how can we think long-term, not take such big leaps, but maybe just consistently, like kind of like a bulldozer, right? We're just going to keep moving the dirt and keep working towards a different environment where maybe we have ergonomic carriers that are, you're human in the loop. It's not automated to where we're just taking it and say, hey, you go to X yet. How can we have this thing follow us? I recently got to go up to Montreal, Canada, and went out to this place called Shawinigan, which I thought this was way out here.
That's a fun name.
I
wish I could live in Shawinigan. That's awesome.
Yes. I didn't get to spend a ton of time in the town like I got to spend here last night, but I was way out there. I was like, okay, we're quite a few hours from anything.
Right. Yeah.
And why I went there was a company called Movex Innovation.
Okay.
And they have these tracked AT carriers that are awesome.
Okay.
Like, I want a bunch of them. One of them, so they have a capacity of like 8,000 pounds, and the thing's 30 inches wide.
Holy crap.
Yeah, just do the math on that. You could take 8,000 pounds and take it through a doorway. They have these stair carriers that you strap whatever load you have, and it'll go up a 40-degree incline with 2,000 pounds. And they have one that has like a debris bucket or a dumper on it, so you can like start to think about like, we're gonna dig out this basement and go down, right? So now we can figure out how to get this dirt up without killing our people. And they had one that had a crane on it that had like a 1,200 pound capacity. You can check me on my data. But the cool piece is now we're talking to Movex about like how can we get this on one of our projects or in one of our prefabrication facilities to we're starting to move material, and then people are just picking it up.
So is it on tracks?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they have non-marking tracks. It's little remote control with like 4 buttons. It's like, I'm confident like any high schooler could pick it up and be like, oh, okay, I don't need training. So
it's a joystick essentially, right?
Just buttons like forward, back, turn, and it pivots on itself. So up in Shawinigan, we strapped this 1,000-pound concrete block onto this little tiny 30-inch wide carrier, and it goes through like snow and ice and up this freaking dirt thing. And I'm like, this could be a game changer. Like, could we put formwork on this? Could we put scaffolding parts and pieces? Can we load this up with a bunk of plywood? And I think the answer is yes to all of it. We just kind of have to try it. Yeah. And then again, this goes back to my original piece about like, this could increase production. Yes, maybe not leaps and bounds, but I think it can increase the experience of our workforce. And I think that's something I'm really excited about. And I'm probably going to spend the next year kind of diving into those type of solutions.
Mm-hmm. We talked about workforce experience a little bit pre-show. So we got this, we've got a lot of initiatives now that are trying to work on moving people into trades. Mm-hmm. So we know we've got a skills gap. We know we've got a labor force issue, and there are a lot of people trying to address it. Problem is that has been more reactive.
Yes.
What are you seeing? Are you seeing the experience gap in the industry right now? Is that starting to take an effect or have an effect?
Yeah, I say I don't know about like how deeply it is, but when we think about, raising up somebody that's been on a crew and now they're going to take on a foreman position, I think that we start to see that gap. We may promote them based on how productive they were, right? Mm-hmm. Again, we don't really kind of dive into like, how good a person are they? Like, are they good at leading others? And I think those are some additional skills that we need in the trades, and love to see that happening before you get to that foreman position. Like, are we teaching you how to be a good teammate, right? So to your question though, like, are we seeing the gap? Yes. I've also heard it's getting better. Like, there's a 19% increase in youth going into the skilled trades, which that's exciting because now we're moving somewhere.
Yeah, I heard that the other day too.
Yeah. I think I heard it on Mike Rowe say it recently.
He was on the Dave Ramsey's show, I think, and he mentioned that. It was,
and that got me kind of fired up because I'm like, okay, that's positive. And then you have company like Rosedon Electric that's partnering with Grand Canyon University to build an apprenticeship program that's like 16 weeks long, but then automatically translates into potentially like an associate's degree or further education. Yeah. You can even get your bachelor's through there. So I believe that we're starting to transition that narrative to we need it. It's not so much that, hey, this is a good path for you, and maybe you're more mechanically inclined, and maybe 4-year school is not the best thing for you. I think it's more of a emergent now to where it's like, no, we need this because in, I'd say 7 years, we're really going to feel it. We're building tons of data centers, right? That's a technical build. Yeah. You need technical people. You need, deep understanding of what we're doing. And that experience in 7 to 10 years will be gone. They're just going to be like, hey, see ya. We're in our van by the river. Yeah. More of that would be awesome. I think we need to continue to flip the script on the narrative on like, everybody could go to learn a trade and you're more valuable for it. You could still go get your 4-year degree whenever, but now you could do it with less burden on yourself and your family and whatnot.
It's interesting. I think there was a stigma, and I mean, we've talked about this. A lot of people have talked about this a ton, that, we got this labor force issue, we got the skilled trades issue, and that there's a stigma that's been created around not going to college, right? And I think that some of that's starting to get erased, like that's starting to be rectified, and we're starting to make some inroads into there are viable paths into the trades that look like a career, not like I fell into a job, and I'm a dumb butt, I couldn't do anything else kind of outlook for the whole thing. At the same time, of what I've seen and have had more experience as I've had kids that are coming of age in school is that we're still having a hard time with this, right? And so, you know, encourage the young people around you is kind of the call, and keep their mind open to like these paths are good. Like this is a viable career path, and you can rise to the ranks. So like we need foremen.
Yeah,
we need people that are leaders. Like we need people that are good business people that are willing to be entrepreneurs in certain trades. So.
Well, the other thing too, I think like, we put a lot of pressure on the youth to like know what they need to do by the time they're 18. That's BS.
Yeah,
like,
totally.
So I went into the trades pretty soon after school and still didn't know what I wanted to do for quite a while. And I, in all honesty, I tried to leave the industry several times, and whatever the construction gods just had a different plan for me. And they're like, no, you're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
I think if we like kind of talking directly to parents, like think about that. Like don't put so much pressure on our kids to know that they need that right away. Hey, go spend 16 weeks at a Rosedon boot camp and figure out you want to be an electrician, and then maybe go get your mechanical degree later. Like there's pathways to where you're going to be better for it no matter what at the end of that experience.
Yeah. It'll influence how you work down the road too, right? Like some of these camps that you could go to, heck, if you go in and you work for a company for a year, you take a gap, that's going to influence how you approach any career path. It doesn't matter if you go into finance. It doesn't matter if you go into sales and marketing, whatever. Like going in and just experiencing it is a solid path for a lot of people. And dude, this mindset of let's go ahead and sign on the dotted line for all the student loans. Let's go ahead into college. Let's go ahead and start collecting debt while you figure out what you want to do.
It's broken.
It's why. And especially with how much college is now, it's so expensive.
And you're still going to pay for it when you're out. So
and again, college debt doesn't go away.
No.
You can't file bankruptcy and get out of that. Yeah. What?
It can go away.
It can go away? How so?
Well, when the president says it can go away.
That's okay. That's fair enough. That's fair enough. That's fair enough.
That aside, I don't think that we need to map a path that assumes that student debt go away. And to your point, yes, this isn't debt that you can bankrupt your way out of. It's going to stick with you.
Well, it irritates me because I've got so many friends out there who have gone this route and they're sitting on piles and piles and piles. And I'm sure there are people that are listening to this that are sitting on piles and piles and piles of debt as a result of going to college.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here going, how much better off are you as a result? Now, I think that there's a case to be made based off of your background and different things of whether or not that can get you access to, resources and different things to help you. But man, for a lot of people, it's not really the best path. Like I know for me, man, I would have sucked as a college student. I would have been terrible as a college student. And I learned so much by just being focused in and learning a craft, learning a skill that I can go back to if everything blows up in my face, right?
Yeah.
Like I have that skill that I can fall back on. But so many of my other peers, they don't even have that. Like if this one thing that they have gotten into folds, they're hosed.
Right. That's scary.
They got to go back to school.
Yeah.
And keep the cycle,
and I love what you're saying there because my dad taught me how to work on my truck when I was young, right? So now, passing that knowledge along, and then at any point I could just say, this isn't fun anymore. And I could go back to, building decks or houses or framing.
Yeah.
And there's something that I find very valuable and comforting in that. Like stuff goes down, like I can barter my way to get some eggs and food by building you a fence and being a little handyman. And I think if we're really talking about like, if you take that gap year and you do something, and I'm not advocating for a gap year or not, it's if you choose to do that and you try to do something, that experience is very valuable one way or the other. If I look back at my career, each one of my positions or roles or projects that I've built has contributed to where I'm at right now. And you go back to that encyclopedia of experience and go, how did I do it here? Or, I remember when that happened. Or I've dealt with this before, watch this kind of thing. And when we're young, right, that's harder to do. So go get that experience, whatever that looks like. And yeah, you could have the college experience. We all know what that looks like, right? It's partying, it's having fun with your friends. You can have fun with your friends and go partying and have a ton of money and still gain experience, right? And not have all the debt. So I guess.
No, I feel like it depends on who it is, right? It depends on who you are and your personality. So I think a big part of, I advocate for a gap year specifically because it kind of does help you understand, like, who am I in the working environment? Because working environment and school environment are two different things.
Far different.
Very, very different. And you got to learn, what is this? I'll say 90% of my working career, like I'm gonna be here at where I work. Like, what is that gonna look like? And giving yourself that gap to just establish, like, who am I in this regard, and what do I like? What do I not like? That's huge. Well, and choose to go to college after that if you want to. Like, that's fine. I'm not saying never go to college, but like, at least you've got some more clarity on that. And we keep thrusting kids into this like pathway of like, go to college, go to college, go to college, go to college.
There was
it's not for everybody.
A guy that we raced mountain bikes with, and he was a mechanical engineering student, and he ended up taking a government contract and going and doing some nuclear work. He was so excited and so gung-ho, and I'm like super proud of him, like how he got there. But then he's been in that role for about 2 years. And he's like, I don't know if I want to do this. I was like, bro, you just spent like 6 years when let's take a step back. Let's figure out, what do we enjoy most? What are we most interested in? And can that pay the bills? Because then you're not working a day in your life. You just get to, have fun and learn. But it's interesting. That's kind of that same model. Hey, you got to go to college. Oh, what looks good on paper? Mechanical engineering. Okay, he's just not super excited about now that he's in the details and the weeds on it. It's like, yeah, that happens. So again, advocating, go out there, learn what you don't want to do. That's pretty important.
Yeah. Learn what you don't want to do.
Yeah. We've seen a lot of the students pick career path based on like what they Googled that had a good salary attached to it. So like the guidance counselor walks them through the exercise of, let's try to find your career path. And then they go out and you get like the same 4 or 5 basic careers that they're like, they found a career that had a high salary based on what they Googled and said, I'll shoot at that.
Wait, you think they'd translate that salary to happiness?
Right. That doesn't, that's not, that connective tissue is not there for a teenager.
They haven't made it yet, right? Nah. Like they just think, I want to make as much money. That doesn't mean you're going to be happy.
Yeah, right? What are you going to enjoy what you do to get that thing? And I'm really, I don't know. I'm interested to see this play out in the lives of my kids and everything, because this kind of just brings it home for me. I'm rooting for them. One of the best moves I think we've made thus far is putting my son together with Nathan Patton and letting him have a shadow call. Okay. And he was interested in surveying. And so I was like, oh, well, let me put you in touch with somebody who does it every day so he can tell you actual surveying looks like this. You're like, this is what surveying looks like, right? And give him some of the cool things, give him some of the reality. Also, an interesting point is I have seen so many people. I don't know if this is just the dudes out there, but a lot of my brethren have gotten to about 30, 35. And they're like, oh man, is this what I wanted to be when I grow up?
This guy right here. This guy.
It happens
That's
to
my wife.
So many. Happened to me.
It's happened to me.
Yeah. So it's just a very natural, I think, part of life. So that whole 18 years old, I don't know what I want to be when I grow up. At 30, 35, you're like, oh, heck yeah. I'm asking that now.
Yeah.
Because you get the work experience and you're going, I don't know, you're thinking about life and you're thinking, you understand, okay, this is what I'm going to do.
Well, your perspective shifts so much too. Like from when you graduate college or, you come out of an apprenticeship program to now, like you think of some of the things, at least for me, that have happened. I had kids. I got married.
Yeah.
That kind of changes your perspective just a touch here, right? Like the things that I prioritized when I was 18 versus now, they're so different. Like those were all off in obscurity. I didn't know what those were going to look like. I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to have a family one day and all that stuff. I had no idea what that would be, what that would mean to me. And the reality of it is that it's not the money, it's what I'm doing. And can I be present with them? Like that's what I want most. And I think a lot of people want that. And that's what they're asking themselves.
Yeah. Like the fact that I get to be home every night and I get to be present for, playoff games, volleyball games, whatever. Like that to me, what is the most valuable thing. Like I don't need that crazy salary if I can have this time with my family, because we don't know how much more we have. And then pretty soon they're going to be out of the house. And then I'm going to be like,
Yep.
Now what, hun?
Yeah.
Let's go get in the van.
Let's go to the river.
Yeah. Let's go get in the river. So we're going to the river again? Yeah.
Dude, I been thinking through I got to go back to the van thing.
My gosh.
It does go full circle though, because previous career experiences.
I came up with a van barbershop idea. It's great.
Did.
Well,
I can back this up.
they did
I did.
that all the time. There's a guy who had a trailer in my neighborhood.
There's a trailer?
He was a trailer.
They do that for dog grooming too. There's a guy that comes by and he does dog grooming.
You stole this from Mutt Cuts, man.
I did steal it. No, I totally stole this from Mutt Cuts, man. I was like, actually, that'd be a great idea.
You see the poodle in the back with the mustard all over it. And second time, you might want to run a comb through that one.
Who got the hot dog?
Yeah.
Chuck things back at CEOs and stuff in the back of my van.
All right,
anyway.
construction career experience. All right, I take great solace in the fact that I had a little general carpentry when I started out. I learned to tie rebar, pour concrete, different things. And so it's like, if it hits the fan, I can go back and I can pour a driveway or something. I can do something. I can set a toilet. I can there are a lot of things that are like useful skills. Yeah. So that's there. I can do those things. And recently I've kind of been drawn a little bit back towards that world. And it's,
is it?
No. Oh no.
I don't even know how that happened.
I just want to know what was playing.
Surfaces. Feeling good. That's a good song.
All
Anyway,
right.
all right.
Okay. All right.
It's my hype.
That's what I was listening to on the way here. Surfaces.
Surfaces,
That's
really?
so
Dude,
weird.
That's
That's
freaking awesome, right?
No, I was like, what am I going to feel this morning? And I
So
was like,
I'm
okay.
also at Forrest Frank, who's like he's starting to do stuff. He's more like the Christian genre, but oh my god, dude, he's like
Forrest Frank.
He came out of Surfaces.
All right.
Freaking awesome, dude. His solo stuff's great. Anyway, sorry, Eddie.
Sorry.
Continue.
Amateur hour over here.
I honest to goodness think we should keep all of that, but that's just me. Just being real.
It's fine by me. Anyway, what was your point, Eddie?
No cut. The whole van thing, I've been thinking through how to set up a transit van or a trailer or whatever. Because I used to run around for rebath and I'd remodel bathrooms. And we had this whole trailer built out. We had all the tools, we built out a whole drawer system for all of the couplings, fittings, everything you need, everything that could come up at end of day.
It's
and you go back and pull the drawer and pull the elbow out and be like, all right, I got a 3/4, I'm good. I don't have to run to
Where's
Lowe's.
my 3/4?
Yeah. Well, that was a bad day too. You're like, I didn't refill the dang drawer. So you're always very diligent at Lowe's in the morning if you're running through to restock and also supply for current job. So, I'm thinking back to that and I'm thinking through setting up the van. Mm-hmm. It's funny how innovation needs some of that backdrop to inform it and make it real. Right. So, that previous construction experience that you have makes you daydream about how to set that van up and be like, man, you wouldn't do that without that backdrop.
Without the frustration, right?
Yeah, you're oh gosh, I don't have that thing at the end of the day. And now I'm till 7 trying to finish the project because I had an extra run I had to make instead of getting home on time. It mattered. It's visceral. So that's why you daydream about that stuff, is you felt it. And I think that's the backdrop for good innovation. I think it's a good tie-in here. That was your path to this. So, you didn't have some technical path in you had a very hands-on path to innovation. And I like that.
My experience got me this seat. 100%.
Yes.
And without that, I shouldn't be here. I shouldn't be sitting here talking about construction, right? And all the cool tools and gadgets, but tools and compartmentalizing and whatnot, it does warm my heart. And I do think other superintendents may understand where I'm coming from, probably all similar minded, where you're okay, how can I plan this to the nth T to where I can basically put my feet on my desk and just watch the machine run. Like that's like the holy grail. It's like, yep, find that.
Yep.
That's the stuff that I dream of too. Maybe I would have been a really good soup. I don't know.
So I loved. Did you guys love Legos when you were little?
Oh yeah, of course.
It's a dumb question.
I mean,
but I'd also.
Mine was Constructs, actually.
Constructs.
It's like this really one-off, like, it's the irony of I'm working in structures.
Yeah.
Like, there were these little, like,
You can make
like
the cranes and stuff, though, with those ones, right?
Yeah.
Like, I know what you're talking
They're
about.
these little knuckles that you would connect things into.
Oh, yeah. I remember those.
They hung around the house.
They hung around the house, and they were all kind of chewed up because Fudge got a hold of them at one point.
Yeah, our dog ate them.
Yeah. That's good time.
Totally, those kind of tools or toys were like...
It's all right angles.
Go figure. Go figure.
He wasn't going to be an architect, ladies and gentlemen.
Anyway, Legos are awesome.
Legos are awesome. Yes. Precursor for maybe you have a career in building.
Yes.
You enjoy building Legos and color coding and whatnot. Totally. You don't have to be an engineer. You can build some stuff.
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
Mm-hmm. My daughter's she's getting into that too. I just love it. I just fan that flame. I'm like, oh my gosh, you love Lego? Oh, let's go. This is awesome. And I definitely want to buy her like the Millennium Falcon or something like that, and be like, yeah, it's for her. It's totally for her.
Sure. Do you help?
Yeah.
We're going to work out a good night.
We get the Death Star and all these different things that I've wanted.
Is it a Star Destroyer?
Star Destroyer. Oh, yeah.
That's the one that the kids and I like watching Dude Perfect together. They built it and then they ended up like throwing it all and like wrecking it.
Yeah.
And I forget how many pieces, like 8,000 or something. I mean, it was a massive set. Massive.
Chaos, dude.
And very expensive.
Well, you guys have the thing that you build every year though, right? It's the Home Alone house.
We do the Home Alone house. We've gotten some hand-me-down like architectural Legos.
Those are great. Yeah. Well, I mean, shoot, dude, we've got Lego back here. I didn't even realize.
That was a training exercise. When people would start with ABSI, we had the Burge, and we would sit them down with the Lego set, and it had some little explanations about foundations and different things. We're like, here, do this. And it would be like an hour of their day. And they put it together.
Hey, here, build this Lego set. Yeah. And they're like,
is this an interview? Yes.
Yeah. No, it wasn't even an interview. They were already hired. It's like, hey, welcome here.
Play Lego.
This, have fun. Yeah, have fun. And they're like, this is the best job ever. Oh my gosh,
the college students were like on it.
Oh, they freaking loved it.
Then we bought these structure sets too. Like they were kind of these.
Those are more intense.
Science toys that you could build. You could take the components and build like, I don't know, half a dozen, maybe a dozen things out of. Yeah. And they had to follow plans to do it. So you're looking at the schematic of how this thing goes together, but it would explain things like moment and shear.
Oh, really?
Like it would have a kind of
like that
dumbed down version of that. It wasn't like some high lofty language engineer version. It was this is what shears. So they would be reading that as they built the toy, and at the end they'd have a bridge, or they'd have any number of things that would have it. I mean, it had string incorporated with it. It was cool.
I wonder if they retain that information better that way.
Hands-on for me was always like, if I can do it with my brain and my hands, like I'm lodging that somewhere a little deeper for sure.
On the way here, I was reading Paul Rabel's book, The Way of the Champion, and it's a bunch of stories about like champions, Olympic medalists, Bill Belichick, like all these, like kind of how they got to where they are. Yep. And it was these little things and these little messages in there. And they talk about like associating your interest to learning and, memory recall and like how you can utilize that. And I thought about that for my son and going like, hey, have you thought about this for history? Like apply this to lacrosse, right? Or he loves, wrestling and stuff. You apply that to how you get out of an armbar move, like all that kind of stuff. And it kind of pinged for me a little bit about like, we're all leveraging our experience again, and how do we translate that into useful knowledge? It kind of fascinated me on the way here. I was like, oh man, I'm 42 and I'm still figuring out how to learn stuff.
Oh, lifelong learner.
Yeah.
That's the thing that I don't think can be taken away from you in this life. Like there are a lot of things that you can lose, but as long as you have brain function, you can learn. I mean, I could be a quadriplegic and still have an insatiable desire to learn.
Yeah.
And I will say that from the standpoint of great examples in our lives, our dad is certainly an insatiable learner. He's constantly learning things. Yeah. But his dad, Pop, he's the guy that he still had, like, he bought the cassette. I don't know if they were cassette tapes or DVDs, but he had this whole engineering series, which Pop was a civil engineer. But here he is, in his early 90s, and he's bought these DVDs to learn about engineering and how things were put together.
Yeah.
And he just, like, I think that's why he stayed sharp and he is in the game because he keeps learning and keeps growing. So
that's one thing I'll come back to, like, kind of that college age thing that we were talking about earlier. Whenever I started in with ABSI and I was like, all right, college isn't for me. That was one of the things that early on I decided, I'm like, okay, if I'm not going to go to school, if I'm not going to do that higher ed path, I have to learn how to learn better. Yeah. Right. And so honestly, that's where I started listening to podcasts. That's where I started listening to books, reading more books. That's where I started, venturing out and learning about user experience design and photography and videography. And I'm like, oh, that's really interesting that, like, videography is, like, the main thing that I do now. Right. So eventually that, like, kind of, I tied all of it together and now it works. But, like, it was in a way. And I would think that you've kind of walked this path too, where it's like, okay, yeah, I didn't do the higher ed thing, but like, there's almost like a chip on your shoulder in a way. It's like, I don't need it.
I feel pretty confident.
Yeah. I'm like, yeah. It's like, no.
I know what I'm talking about.
Right.
Based on the trials and tribulations and the frustrations and those experiences where that went really well, that freaking crashed and burned. Right.
Yeah. I mean, that's the best teacher. That is the best teacher is failing. And
it's like, how do you know that? I lived it.
Yeah.
I felt it. So argue that. Like, this was my experience.
Builds resilience, and I feel like that we've lost that. You were reading a book too, Comfort Crisis, that I think talks a lot about, like, resilience. And, we get in this place where we're just almost like we're always trying to win. I haven't read the book yet, but that's kind of my assumption of where it kind of takes us is, like, we just get comfortable winning all the time and we don't put ourselves through these trials and tribulations to get better.
Yep. Driving your point home, I've got a history degree.
Yeah.
And then immediately after leaving college, took a job tying rebar. And I can tell you that the lessons learned tying rebar, the lessons learned learning how to plumb a house, frame, put in plumbing fixtures or even basic electrical, stuck. I've got that. I can still go back and do all of those things. I did it with my brain and I did it with my hands. If you take me back to what I learned in those history classes in college, I couldn't pass those exams today. There's no way. I mean, I had more classes on, like, English history. Like, I think I had like 4 semesters in a row in the same period of English history that I'd be lucky to pick out. Now, I love history. I love learning about it. I still have a desire for that, and that's awesome. But there was something about putting my hands on a thing while I was learning it that just made it stick. And I mean, college has its place. I think it's, our role to dog on it, down on it. And I love that there are history teachers in the world and baseball coaches like I thought I wanted to be. But I'm thankful that's not the path that ended up being mine. I'm thankful that I have something that I do every day that has tactile return. And my analytical brain wanted and needed that. I wanted something that would return. I could say, I built that. That's a really big deal for me. But the educational process and having gone through school and in having gone through trades right there back to back, I can tell you the trades took and set a lot deeper in my mind than the school did. And I mean, personal experience. I know this is not like all scientific or anything, but that's where I'm.
I mean, we're on the Construction Brothers podcast. It's all scientific.
Everything is backed up by fact.
Podcasts, as a rule, are a good place to get academic, sourcing and things of that nature. I did learn that in college. There's a difference between academic source and just, us.
I have not read the Comfort Crisis book either, but hearing that word, right, or term, comfort crisis, I do believe that's a fact, right?
Yeah.
I think we have come to this point to where we don't like to be uncomfortable, and discomfort is bad. And if you're uncomfortable with my words, then I need to, you know, like you need to change, and
That's right.
all this.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I strive. I even have a shirt that says, you know, be comfortable being uncomfortable, right? Like embrace the discomfort, because you learn from that. You actually have to grow through that experience versus everything just being, you know, oh, you're fine. You get a trophy. You're good. No worries. Oh, he called you what? Like, okay, what did you learn from that? You know?
Yeah.
And it's a frustrating piece for me watching my teenagers grow up, because I'm like, no, it's time to get sweaty and gritty and uncomfortable. And like, how far can you push yourself now? Because if you learn these lessons so far, you know, this early in your life, like when you're 35 and you're questioning, what am I doing? Like you're gonna have a place to like kind of look and turn and get gritty with it. I just think we're too focused on comfort and, you know, how does this benefit us, and worried about other people's feelings. And this is my own opinion, but pretty frustrating. I see it a lot. I'm like, no, you can, I mean, look at my ears, right? This doesn't come from comfort. This comes from being uncomfortable all the time. And I freaking love it.
Yeah.
Like, I love it. Like, what do you come out of that doing? Like, learn something. You learn something about yourself. It's like, oh, okay. I just got choked like 22 times today. That sucked.
Yeah.
But I'm still alive, and I'm going to be back tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
And I'm going to choke that guy.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
I'm getting him.
Yeah, like he's on my list. I would like to see a little bit more of that in the youth. Like, let's get gritty and get off your phone and like get dirty and use your hands. Let's build some stuff.
Yeah.
And learn.
So the idea being that comfort is wrecking us, right? I mean, like there's a very negative impact that we are feeling from everything being easy. That as humans, we've been built to do hard things.
Yeah.
And there's something about overcoming hard things that's actually like just kind of comes home in us. And it's missing because information's easy to get. Studying. Very interesting deal where, you know, you send two groups off. This is a study that was done. You send two groups off and you have them research a topic. One group is allowed to use the internet and electronic resources, and the other is not. The other has to go paper. They got to go to libraries. They got to go and get it from Encyclopedia Britannica, like the old days, right? And so
my kids would be like, what?
Yeah. What's interesting is that, you know, obviously the group that was allowed to use the electronics comes back and they're done very quickly.
Yeah.
And the research is probably more robust, but their retention is deplorable. The group that had to go get it on the books, to go through the paper, their retention was much greater than the group that had to get it electronically. Why? There's something that you're marinating in it a little longer. That's like working with the hands and the brain. You're marinating in that a little longer. We've been kind of sucked in by how we live, which is very comfortable. And because of that comfort, I mean, this is the mental health crisis that we're dealing with. This is a lot of the things that we're going, and I don't really feel like meaning, having a meaning about who you are as a person is a deal for people now. These kind of things are coming out. And unfortunately, some of this mental health is like, I mean, suicide rates are starting to rise. Mental health rates are on the rise. And maybe you need to get a little more uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Maybe you need to make yourself uncomfortable. Get yourself out of your current context a little bit and go get into it.
Even on the mental health side of things, like we're talking about anxiety, like we talked to Nolan White, right? And he was talking about how we practice avoidant behavior when something is uncomfortable, right? So if we go out and we're like, oh, that caused me some anxiety. So what happens? We come back and next time we get that opportunity, we go around it. Right. And we avoid it. And now it's like that is totally contributing.
Are you saying like versus
like
versus learn how to create a new skill set or adapt your own self around that anxiety or discomfort.
Yeah. It's so much easier to avoid than it is
Easy button. I'm just not going to go down the alley anymore.
And I think we all kind of have this ability now to avoid things. Because like back in the day when things were analog, you kind of had to face them.
Yeah.
Right? Like a hard conversation, right? Like back in the day, we would have to sit in person and have that hard conversation.
Yeah.
Now it's like, it's a text message or it's an email or something. And it has disconnected us from, I mean, just the humanity of, and I can go back to construction and seeing that, like, and Eddie knows this is, I freaking rant on email anytime I get, but you lack that human interaction and you don't have empathy for the other person.
You don't see any facial expressions. You don't understand how hard that was for you to communicate that to their face. Cause there's nothing, you don't see anything. You see the screen half the time, right? It's like, I can say whatever I want because they're not going to punch me in the face.
Right. Yeah.
Being able to punch each other in the face,
that'd be nice.
I mean, just standing,
honestly, like crap, like let's get it out there.
You know what blows my mind? I get that you are probably in, I don't know if martial arts is the right, but what do you do? Like,
it's Brazilian Jiu-jitsu.
Jiu-jitsu. Okay. So,
come on, man, even I know that.
Yeah.
He was going to try to find me a dojo.
I tried several times. It's just the closest one is not close.
I was about to say, there's a place like up the road, but I don't know. It kind of feels like
I think it's more of a karate style.
The ice cream van sort of situation. I'm like, I'm pretty good there, you know? Yeah, anyway.
Well, okay. So Brazilian Jiu-jitsu, MMA, like whatever you're into, if you're a fighter and you're into that, it's amazing to me like that there's this mentality of like, all right, we're going to tangle up and like, I might punch you in the face. Like this isn't metaphorical. I might punch you in the face. And there's going to be a level of sportsmanship about that. Like we're going to, give a fist bump at the end of this thing and be cool after we get out of the ring. Right. Like this is us learning a craft, learning how to do something. Like we can go in and there's a whole subset of people in this world that can fight one another, like physically fight one another and agree that we're going to get out of the ring. We're going to be fine. We're good, man. Like, and it's about self-control and all of these things that like the measure of self-control you have to have around that. But then outside of that, I say something you don't like, like in the world, I say something you don't like. It's like, oh, I'm going to have eternal offense over that. Man, I don't even punch you in the face.
Yeah.
Like, and you're going to hold an eternal grudge. No, I think that we can exercise some of that same mentality in life. So I feel like that might set you up for a rant.
So you're good. I'm like,
might set you up for a rant.
I think I might have dreamt about this last night, or somehow this turned into a jiu-jitsu conversation because I love jiu-jitsu with everything.
Teed you up, man.
You did. I'm so excited.
We're making your dreams reality.
That's what you guys do on the show. Bring your dreams to life. So you're 100% accurate. I was at a lacrosse game this week, and the other team whooped my son's team pretty bad. Awesome. They were better athletes. But what I look at is my son has been training jiu-jitsu and wrestling and all sorts of stuff since he was little. We take these gloves off and these helmets off. It doesn't mean you're tough, right? It doesn't mean you have the grit it takes to get in the ring, just you and one other person. I think there's something so important in how jiu-jitsu and grappling and MMA translate to life, because I have to face you, which you're my problem right now, right? Not really, but metaphorically speaking. And I have to work that problem, and I don't know what you're gonna give me as tools to work through that. So you have to stay calm. You have to, be. I think being physically capable helps, right? Being in shape, so you're working on something outside of this problem at the same time to make sure you're good. Your ego has to be in check, and at some point, I could lose this, but what am I gonna do next? Right? Like, am I going to learn? Am I going to take that other path and not come back to the gym? And I think we need to do more of this, where we do things that make us uncomfortable. So a shout out to Clark's University of Martial Arts in Bend, Oregon, Gracie Hamada. They're awesome. So when we talk about these, like we're going to be friends at the end of the day. There's a group of people that we meet all the time, and we're not friends in a little match, and then we're all friends afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
But where I'm going with this is we fist bump. We have a problem that we work through. Sometimes I win, sometimes I learn, and then sometimes I learn multiple times in a day, and then I come away, we're like, okay, how am I better for this? Yeah, maybe my body hurts, whatever. But I faced something that was uncomfortable, and I'm going to come back tomorrow, and I'm going to come back the next day. And 90% of the free world walking around, I'll probably choke. Like I could probably choke you, just 90%, not 100% for sure. And I think there's some confidence in that. So you walk into a construction environment and I feel pretty confident, like because of my experience based on building, right? Now I've taken some of these experience and been and practiced being uncomfortable often. So now, like, this is an easy day, right? I start my morning with jiu-jitsu sometimes, or you go at lunch and you come back to work. I'm like, nobody's trying to kill you right now. So like, let's just back up, right? Like, let's back up. We're talking about a change order that we can reconcile down the road, right? But when we talk about like EHS and things like this, these are problems we should be getting uncomfortable with. Like, why do we keep making these same, mistakes? Why we still have people getting injured? Why is our workforce not coming to it? Like, let's get uncomfortable with these conversations and really face the facts. And I don't know what those facts are, but
yeah.
I'm just super pumped you guys brought up jiu-jitsu. Yes.
We had
jiu-jitsu is life. Jiu-jitsu is life, essentially.
Was it Danny Ross? Jiu-jitsu is life. That's awesome, dude. My gosh. Yeah, I really wish that I could find a place around here, like legitimately, because that's just something that interests me. It'd be pickleball and jiu-jitsu. Those would be my two things.
You could put them in the same place. That'd be awesome.
There's a metal building that just formed in his head.
Jiu-jitsu. How do I?
Well, just on one side, you got the pickleball courts. On the other side, you got some mats and.
You don't do them at the same time.
What if? Innovation. All right, let's figure it out.
Do you go to deuce and pickleball?
Like what?
Deuce, like in tennis. When you're in a tie.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, I got that. But sorry. Anyway.
Okay, how does pickleball scoring work? I'm a novice.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so basically,
do you go to a tie? You gotta win by a point.
You got to win by 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't tie.
So when you get there, then you just go to the mat.
There you go.
And work it out.
There you go. Yeah, that's it.
That's the point where it just flips over and then whoever gets choked out loses. Obviously.
I mean, honestly, I would win a lot more games that way because I'm just fighting a bunch of 80-year-olds.
The 80-year-old women that you are currently playing in pickleball, like, I think
they're probably beasts, though.
Yeah.
Honestly, I would be very nervous. I'd be like, it's not that I'm worried about like breaking you. I'd be worried that you're going to break me.
Yeah.
Like you have this history in the CIA or something like that I don't know about. And you just know all the things, right? Like,
yeah. And pickleball's your cover.
You know 100 ways to kill a person with a pencil eraser, right? Like that's their MO. I'm like, oh,
you're going to eat this ball.
Yeah. No. I'll work on that.
Work on that concept.
Okay.
That's a good concept.
All right. Well, we have gone around and around and around here. I think we've accomplished a lot of things.
I think we've accomplished something.
We've accomplished something today, which is what?
I think the message today is about experience. That's and transit vans and jiu-jitsu, but moreover experience. Sorry.
Vans, introduce.
Yes, because you can put mats in a van and drive them to a park and train jiu-jitsu. So
choke people out in the back of the van.
Yeah, you totally could.
Which could go all kind of
cage match. Sorry, that's not what
let's not make a habit out of that. I don't think that'd be good. So, holy crap.
My boss is going to see this. Like, what were you doing in
Georgia?
Yeah. All right, tie this back to jiu-jitsu and experience. So last October, our DPR's innovation team, we all met in Charlotte, North Carolina. Mm-hmm. And it was really cool. We had a bunch of agenda items that we wanted to get through on, goals and initiative setting. But our leader, he was like, hey, let's do some sort of field exercise. And he's like, Ty, I'd like you to run it. Will you create some sort of exercise for us all to do? And I was like, yes. So we created this, I made them have to build just a wall metal stud framed wall. They had to drywall it, they had to lay it out, they had to frame it, then they had to drywall it. And I timed it, the whole thing. So I wasn't allowed to work with them, and I split the team up into 2. And I gave them, basically your spec sheet and your drawings, like here's what the wall should look like. And I gave everybody the tools, and I said, we're going to see how this goes. And the reason for this was to give individuals that may not have the same field experience some experience in work that we perform. So we're one of the largest, metal stud drywall framers and in the country, which is awesome. But it's important, I think, for people like, we'll just use our innovation team, to know a little bit more about what it takes to put that wall up for our people. So if we're going to innovate for our company and the industry and, future construction people, we need to understand those pain points. So like on a micro level, the team got to build 2 walls that were just L-shaped, super simple. But what they gained was far more, right? Because now they're like, oh, I didn't know that that's how we had to cut the studs. I'm like, yeah, we got to cut them. And there's sparks and it's freaking loud. Oh, and then you got to put one guy up in a scissor lift to connect the top, but it's kind of weird, right? And like, you got to plumb the wall. Yeah, so there's some quality. Like it was super fun to like see the product, but then what the rest of the team kind of gained in knowledge. And then you could see their wheels turn. I was like, we should be doing this with tons more leaders is what I'd love to see is, there's a lot of folks at DPR that may not have come up specifically through the trade, but have enough experience to get them to a position to where they're leading the company, but we're still have a disconnect between the field. Like, let's get in there and do some, some field experience, like pour some concrete and whatnot. And some of those things helped me a ton with like building crew rapport. And like when I was out in the field still, even as a superintendent on the project, you got tons of things to do. But if you can pull yourself away and connect with those people putting work in place by handing them drywall, right? Giving them some screws, stacking studs for them, sweeping up. Like you watch your leadership capital go through the roof and you're going to learn something while you're working next to them. And that's one of those things I miss often from not being in the field. Is like, oh, we got concrete pour. All right, I'm gonna get my boots. Yeah. They half the time they try to take the shovel from you and don't let you do it. I'm like, no, you do you over here. I got this over here. It's I think super important. We need to do that more, is really get back to where, we literally put the screw in the stud and the nail in the board, whatever it is. But like to see a little bit more of that. Just like, let's get dirty. Let's get uncomfortable. Right? Let's get dirty and uncomfortable and some concrete on your face and like you got to wipe it out of your eye because that happens. Like, oh, that's why we need safety glasses. Yeah, because this shit stings, right?
Yeah. I didn't think you were about to say eye. I heard something else coming there. Anyway. Wipe it out of your eye. Anyway, it's like Shrek. This part where they're singing Duloc or whatever. My kids are really into Shrek right now. It's a good time. Also, sidebar conversation here completely that we need to talk about after the show ends is will jiu-jitsu, if we put jiu-jitsu mats on job sites, do you think it would solve most of the conflict in the industry?
If you put them in a pole planning session, like I think there'd be a lot of people that would shy away. And the true, we're going to go down this. I'm going to indulge you in this.
Send it, man.
We're gonna
just do this thing.
I would have loved that. Well, obviously, because I probably would have won. But I really would have loved that in the same regard, because like two people that are like, hey, all right, you guys don't agree. Well, at the end of this, somebody's going to agree on something. So who's going to submit, essentially? Yeah, right? Because that's kind of what happens in what we do. In a poll planning session, right? Somebody has this opinion over here. Another guy has this over here. Somebody's going to end up being like, all right, fine. Like you win. Yeah. Let's actually see who wins. And then plan the project that way. So I love this idea. I don't know how risk or insurance would feel about this, but I think
they don't need to know.
Well, but I think it kind of goes back to your point about like being uncomfortable with those conversations, like having a conversation in front of somebody and like being okay with that. Like it
might force you to find resolution in the job trailer.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, well, if we don't
go to the mats,
we're going to have to go to the mats if we don't figure this out right now.
Like true story.
And I'm sure some people would just be like, no, I just want to go to the mats. Like that would be their kind of
immediately.
They'd be like, I want to fight just because I want to fight. I had a bad day yesterday and I really want to punch somebody in the face.
Or if you fight first and then talk about it later, I would think that you could probably reach a resolution after, because you don't have the anxiety,
dominance early on, so people know, like, It's prison yard rules, right? So you walk up to the biggest guy there and you punch him, right? That's how it works.
Grab by the neck.
Yeah, there it is. All right. Guys, we've solved all of the problems in construction today. Tyler, thanks for coming and joining us, man.
Thank you. Appreciate it.